I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Dr. Betty Bonner, Catherine Sells, Michelle Alcateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, Allison Lasan, Sheila Taylor, and Jenny Prosnick. I will lead us in prayer this evening. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask you to bless all those assembled here tonight, to put wise words on our lips and grace on our tongues, to do the work for the students, staff, and communities that make up Lewisville ISD. Come upon us and cause us to have productive meeting. Lead each one of us so that we can make good and meaningful contributions. We place our hope in you for the future. Inspire a spirit of civic engagement. May all be encouraged to participate actively in shaping the future of our nation, state, and community. I ask you to be with those in harm's way and to give them courage. We ask you to bless all schools, but especially those in Lewisville ISD, that they may be safe and lively places of learning that inspire all learners of every age. Please grant special blessings for those who teach and for those who learn. I ask this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by the Texas Government Code, Section 551, especially 551.071, 074, and 089. The time is 6:01 p.m.
Isn't she going to move DACCO up? Me? I'm just trying to figure, there's no such a thing. It is. I'm trying to figure out the dynamics. I'm trying to figure out, and a lot of it just doesn't. And I'm not throwing out, I don't know it, but. Well, that's what I did some of that today, but just because it's been, has so much on my plate. No, but there's symptoms. Like, today I was just doing the little things in nature that I could approve or not approve. I'm like, I can do that. Like, I don't even think I've approved Chronos yet today. Like, these investigations, I get people on leave, but the follow-up memorandum, I'm like, here's the investigation report. That's your curriculum stuff. That's what I did, yes. That's where I am right now. Yeah, because that's what I did.
We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time is now 6:40 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas pledges.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Dr. Barker, could you read our mission statement, please?
Absolutely. Our mission statement is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders.
Ms. Taylor, could you read our vision statement?
All students are confident, equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Thank you. Public comments are next on the agenda. We had nobody sign up, so we will move on to discussion items. At this time, I'm going to take a privilege and move an agenda item up front, and that would be agenda item I, 5A. Do we want to do that?
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Dr. White to go ahead and come on up here. Thank you, Madam President. We wanted to be able to discuss this evening a great opportunity, bringing forward for discussion a DACCU sponsorship. I want to say thank you to Ms. Brim for working on this agreement with DACCU, and we're looking forward to taking any questions from all of you that we have this evening. We have been working with DACCU going on several months now, and representatives from DACCU will be at the board meeting on the 14th as well. This ultimately represents a 10-year investment in our school district from DACCU, and we will ensure, as we've been talking about in the previous fashion, DACCU has made separate investments in campuses, back to school fair, new hire day, and so as part of this agreement, we will still continue to take care of those things, while it also gives us the unique opportunity to be able to fund some different things, possibly things like graduation cost or the employee banquet. But we're definitely seeking your input and feedback as we go throughout. It doesn't have to happen tonight, but we definitely want your direction in terms of how to use these funds over the course of the next 10 years. And so I'm going to open up this opportunity. If there's questions specifically for DACCU, Dr. White will address those, and then if there's questions for the school district, myself or Ms. Brim will take those. Okay?
Are there any questions? We are just really, I will just say I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. DACCU has always been an amazing partner with the district. You've always supported with especially our new teacher hire and things like this. And I think in many ways what this agreement will do is just solidify that. And as someone said, make you responsible to show up to those things. And I look forward to the next 10 years and to seeing where that relationship goes and grows, and how we can maybe perhaps replicate this with other entities as well, who would like to partner in, if you will, investing in the future of the area. So.
Well, we at DECU certainly want to make our mission to be a strong community partner with education, specifically with Lewisville Independent School District. As both a parent and former employee, I certainly find this to be one of my top priorities, and my role is to support the district and the foundation. So we are happy to partner in any way possible, and certainly want to make the biggest impact. So however we can do that, we are open to considerations. So we appreciate you guys and what you do for our great kids and faculty and staff. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. White. All right, back to the original order. We will begin with the superintendent report and update on the 88th legislative session that never ends.
All right, yes, thank you, Madam President. That is correct. This is the session that does not end. And so I'll just want to provide a very brief update. I'm going to just touch on some things to put out there on your plate and create awareness around. First, I wanted to provide you just some information. We actually, of course, updated the template that's on the website. I appreciate Dr. Miller and Ms. Brim working on that. And since we've alerted our community to the special session content, we've now sent 394 letters to Austin to our elected officials, and we appreciate our community for responding in that way. We thought it would be good, just a quick recap, just speaking to the length of what we've been dealing with. We know that back in January, we started again with the headlines around that $33 billion surplus, and just that this surplus was historic for our state. And then fast forward, the session goes on, it ends without an increase to the basic allotment, which is one of the main asks of both public education and the teacher vacancy task force. But on August the 9th, Governor Abbott signed the largest property tax cut in Texas history. And as we have said to our elected officials, we're appreciative for that property tax relief. And then, not too long ago, we see that the comptroller's already starting to estimate what's going to be the surplus in 24-25, and that there's already talk of an $18.6 billion surplus. And then last Thursday, we see as this third special session is getting ready to come to a close, it looks like school vouchers, teacher pay raises, unlikely that the special session will close, of course, tomorrow without anything really happening related to either of those two topics. So then what happened on Friday was Chairman Buckley sent out a communication to his colleagues of a bill he intends to file in the event of a fourth special session. And I just put the quote on the screen. He basically is providing that information to them to give a jump start on examining this bill ahead of the next special session. And of course, we are in the process of examining this ourselves. It varies quite significantly from the Senate bill version that I talked to you all about at the last regularly scheduled board meeting. Definitely, it looks like the House bill version that Chairman Buckley's talking about promises a significant funding increase for public schools. It does tie into one piece of legislation, funding for public schools and education savings accounts. And that's one of the big differences between what we talked about with the Senate. The Senate filed separate bills related to education savings accounts and their version of public education funding. So just a very few highlights of this new House Bill 1 that just came out last Friday. It has universal education savings accounts in it. Every Texas student is eligible. It appropriates $500 million for that. So Paige did some math on that. You're looking at probably 40,000 students. Gives a little bit different of an amount for homeschoolers. So, well, not a little bit, quite a radically different amount there, but and then children accepted into the program must take a standardized test. If they have failing grades for 2 years in a row, most likely the way the legislation is currently written, they would be kicked out of the program. It does attempt to address some teacher retention things, expanding teacher incentive allotment eligibility, funds for the agency to develop a technical assistance program, establishes a Texas teacher residency program, adds children of teachers to eligibility for free pre-K. Of course, we know they currently aren't funding the pre-K we're required to provide with the current eligibility requirements, so we definitely would need to do the math about if the funding would be provided for that as well. And then additional state aid for one-time retention payments, that's $4,000 for full-time teachers, counselors, nurses, librarians. My whole point really on this slide in the headlines is we will tell staff, again, as we communicate with principals next week, don't get married to anything you see in the headlines. This is all very much a fast-moving space and a work in progress, and there's so much out there now between what the Senate has passed and what the House bill is looking for a special session. There's no telling where it will all end up. As far as public school finance goes, it establishes a fine arts allotment, property value study hardship grants. It increases the basic allotment to $6,700 for fiscal year 25. Does include funding, quite a bit of special education in the bill. A couple of things I noted here: special education evaluation cost as we test students, and funding special ed by intensity of service. So basically what happens now, we're anticipating special session number 4. Again, it seems like every time we come together, it's talking about what we think there will be another special session, so we are anticipating that. We will continue to encourage our community to reach out to our local representatives. We will be absolutely, as far as House Bill 1 goes, we'll be studying House Bill 1, and we will be providing some feedback as well. And that's my update at this time.
I have just one question.
Ms. Lasan.
Dr. Rapp, could you go back to several slides to where you were talking about that? Okay, so every student is eligible to apply, no enrollment cap.
Right.
And so where are we getting the 40,000 students?
So basically, because they only appropriated $500 million at about $10,500 a year, it was what the education savings account would be worth. You're looking at about 40,000 students.
Okay, so people can apply, but there's only 40,000 spots.
Most likely, based on this appropriation.
Based on $10,500 a year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Ms. Taylor.
My question is regarding a special session number 4. Mm-hmm. Do we know the timing on that, if there is a special session 4, when it will happen?
No, they haven't really committed to that. I don't think. I'm looking at page 2. We didn't see anything today on, we'll all just anxiously await when the governor, if he decides to call it. Yeah.
Ms. Sells.
Do they have any estimates on who will be in charge of what they're proposing and how many employees that would take? And I mean, just a little thing to throw out there.
Yes, so we will anxiously await the fiscal notes when this legislation's filed. I promise you that we are studying those things. So no estimate on personnel yet, but I expect it will be a lot. If just surface level reading this right now, the agency's got to establish that residency program. There's more data collection on some teacher quality elements. The comptroller is still the one overseeing the education savings account. It still has education assistance organizations to also help administer the program. So we will, as always, provide that count to you all that we see in those fiscal notes.
And I think I'd also like it noted that if after 2 years we have a student come back, I would love for it to be communicated to our legislators that we would need additional funding to bring them back up to the level that our students are at. So just putting that out there.
Yes, thank you. We'll include that in our feedback. Yes.
I'm more curious about the standardized test and what test they're going to choose. And if they don't choose the STAR test, I'm going to be very curious as to why. So I look forward to more information as we head into the 2 years of the legislative session that's only supposed to meet every other year. Next up is Learning and Teaching Report. Ms. Gall.
Great. Thank you so much, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and members of the board. I'd like to welcome up Dr. Green, who oversees our digital learning department, as well as Kathy Fields, Julia Solnick, and Jane Germany, to share with you information related to our digital citizenship curriculum and to showcase and highlight the things we're doing for our students pre-K through 12.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Rapp. Tonight we're doing our fall update of technology integration with learning and teaching. This is Julia Solnick-Frazier. She is one of our instructional technology specialists, and Jane Germany, another instructional technology specialist, and Kathy Fields, our digital learning administrator. So each time we share with you, the guiding document for how we integrate technology with learning and teaching is our technology application TEACs. And the technology application TEACs have 6 strands: creativity, innovation, communication, collaboration, research and information fluency, critical thinking, problem solving and decision making, digital citizenship, and technology operations and concepts. Tonight we're going to highlight for you how we focus on the strand of digital citizenship to ensure that all of our students can navigate their digital world safely and securely.
So in a world where students' lives are increasingly digital, LISD teaches digital citizenship lessons to ensure that students know how to handle themselves safely and ethically in our digital world. The district believes it is important for students to know their technology creates a digital footprint that may follow them throughout their academic and future careers. Each grade level has the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, or TEACs, that reference digital citizenship and digital literacy. Digital citizenship education is also a federal mandate. Digital citizenship instruction is divided into these 3 main topics. We have ethics and laws, privacy, safety, and security, and social interactions. The first topic, which is ethics and laws, covers responsible, legal, and ethical behaviors while using digital tools and resources. In this topic, students learn about our acceptable use policy, as well as acceptable and unacceptable ways to use digital tools and resources. They will also explore legal topics such as how not to violate copyright law. The second topic is privacy, safety, and security. In this topic, students will learn how to create strong passwords so they can't be compromised, and how to keep their private information, like their name and location, safe and secure. And our final topic is social interactions, which covers students' digital impact and appropriate communication in a virtual environment. In this topic, students will learn how to collaborate respectfully with peers online, and how to craft proper emails, messages, and other digital communications. This infographic details the history of digital citizenship and LISD. Work on digital citizenship instruction began in 2012 with the implementation of the current technology application TEACs and our district's 1-to-X program. The need for a comprehensive digital citizenship K through 12 curriculum was outlined in the 2017 District Improvement Plan. By 2019, digital citizenship curriculum was completed for grades K through 12, and this provides annual lessons for all of our students. In the design of our digital citizenship program, the district partnered with Common Sense Media, which is a national organization that provides digital citizenship resources to the community, families, and schools. And from 2019 to 2022, LISD campuses worked to earn campus recognition from Common Sense. To earn a campus recognition, the campus must teach digital citizenship lessons, train their staff on the area of digital citizenship, and engage the community through digital citizenship with resources. Today, we are excited and proud that 100% of our LISD campuses are Common Sense Media recognized schools. As a result of this work by our campuses, LISD was awarded by Common Sense Media with a district recognition for digital citizenship instruction. We are one of only 8 districts in the state of Texas that has this recognition, as well as only one of 63 nationwide. We have 514 staff members who have currently earned an educator recognition by Common Sense Media because of their individual commitment to digital citizenship. Our commitment to digital citizenship as a district has also helped LISD earn our Trusted Learning Environment seal from COSIN, the Consortium for School Networking.
Tonight, we would like to highlight for you a portion of one of our digital citizenship lessons that we provide to high school students. Provided videos give teachers support in the implementation of the curriculum, and ensure consistency of instruction across the district. Campus librarians narrate these videos. The clip we are going to view is from Digital Citizenship Topic 1, Laws and Ethics, and focuses on intellectual property and copyright.
Digital Citizenship Required Lesson Series 1 for high school. Our focus is lesson number 3, Intellectual Property Law. Our essential question: are there ways to reuse or copy someone's work without having to wonder if you are infringing on their copyright? Our learning goal: I understand copyright, fair use, and public domain, and what this means for me in the classroom. This lesson focuses on copyright and creativity for ethical digital citizens, with a focus on using copyrighted works in our own creations via fair use, Creative Commons, permissions, and public domain. This lesson has been adapted by LISD. After watching a great movie or hearing a great song, have you been inspired to do something creative? Let's discuss. Copyright and intellectual property. Let's watch to learn more.
In September 2015, a judge ruled that the song Happy Birthday does not fall under a valid copyright. Although many people are unaware, for decades the song could not be.
As you can see from this short clip, all digital citizenship lessons include learning goals, opportunities for students to discuss and engage in the content, and real-world applications. It's important for us to ensure that all students in LISD receive digital citizenship instruction annually, and therefore we track lesson completion using Eduphoria-aware assessments. There is dedicated time in every student's academic day for digital citizenship instruction. In K-3, digital citizenship lessons are integrated into the science curriculum, while in 4th and 5th grade, the classroom teacher or the librarian instructs students. Digital citizenship is taught during advisory period for both middle and high school students. A sample advisory schedule of digital citizenship lessons for 6th graders is provided on the screen. In 6th grade, students learn about our acceptable use policy, cybersecurity, intellectual property, and online etiquette. The lessons are all completed within the fall semester.
We enjoy celebrating all of the hard work our campuses and teachers put into making sure our students know the impact of their online behaviors. 100% of LISD campuses have been recognized for their commitment to teaching digital citizenship. Just a reminder, to earn this recognition, campuses teach digital citizenship to all students. They provide staff with professional learning and engage families on using digital citizenship practices at home. When our campuses earn this achievement, we make sure to celebrate them on social media and present them with a banner for school and community display. We currently have 514 educators that have earned individual recognition for their commitment to digital citizenship instruction. We provide all recognized staff members with a badge to also display. On the LISD website, parents and community members can learn more information about our commitment to promoting digital citizenship for all students. Information is available at lisd.net/digital citizenship. It's LISD's goal to equip students with the necessary skills to thrive in a digital world.
Thank you all so much, and we would entertain any questions that you have.
Ms. Lasan?
Thank you so much for coming tonight. So my question is, So these lessons, it looks like, do you guys come up with the lessons yourselves, or are they from someplace and you modify them? How does that work?
The lessons are primarily adapted from Common Sense Media, so we use Common Sense Media lessons, but we do remix them to provide context to LISD students and for the specific concerns of our population.
Okay. And so on that link that you talked about, are the lessons online where parents can view them, or, yeah?
Yes, part of the partnership that we have is through counseling services, and because counseling services does a preview of a lot of their lessons for the families, our lessons are also available for preview at that time.
Great, thank you.
Ms. Alcatab?
I just want to say thank you again for all that you guys do with it. As a parent of 4 kids in 4 different campuses, I appreciate getting these notifications, the transparency, and yes, the lessons are available. So I, as a parent or a community member, can go in and check at any time. And so I just appreciate the work, and congratulations to those teachers and to 100% of our campuses for, meeting that criteria. So thank you.
Dr. Barker?
Since these are adapted from Common Sense Media, are those regularly updated to address new issues in digital citizenship that are forthcoming? And what is maybe the cycle for that, and how do we update?
We recently just updated this past summer and the upcoming summer because the TEKS for technology application TEKS will be new for 2025. So we just did our recent overhaul. At the end of every year, we do, go through those lessons and make sure that they're still timely and important for our students. But we really let the TEKS drive those lessons and their content.
I would add as well that we partner with Mr. Colbeck's team on the acceptable use policy, and that gets updated yearly. And as a result of that, every lesson 1 is about the acceptable use policy, and we always update lesson 1. And that's unique to LISD. That's not a Common Sense Media lesson because we tailor it unique to our district's acceptable use policy.
Ms. Sells?
Can you just remind me how many hours or minutes a student is spending on these lessons? I think that sometimes our community thinks that it's something that we're just checking a box for. At the beginning of the school year, we're telling the kids, okay, don't do anything stupid on your devices. Does everybody agree? And everybody shakes their head, and that's it. So do you have an estimation? I know that the TEKS have those minutes, but how many are those? I think that's good information for us as trustees to know and use out in our community, and as far as what our students are actually doing.
So these formal lessons, there's 4 per grade level, and they take the teacher about 30 minutes to teach, so it's about 2 hours of direct instruction. But we feel it's important that the classroom teachers are the ones delivering these, because these are things you spiral back through all year long. So we believe that the teachers need to know what's in these lessons so that they can reinforce those concepts as they are doing digital activities all year long.
One of the things that the campuses make sure to do, especially as they get their Common Sense Media recognition updated, is talk to their staffs about how we build a culture of digital citizenship, and that it's not just a one-time at the beginning of the year, because we have our devices with us all the time to help us with our learning. So how teachers can build those thinking routines with their students to ensure that they are being digitally smart.
Talking about a culture. My question is how many years, or is this the first year that we've had 100% of our schools receive the Common Sense?
It's been 2 years. So this is the first year that all of our high schools are up for renewal. For this, the elementary, middle were staggered, but all of high schools are up for renewal this year, and they're actively working on that renewal.
Very good. Thank you all so much for your work in keeping our kids safe. Next up is Human Resources Report. Ms. Cobb.
Good evening, President Prosnick, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Rapp. I would like to introduce two people that I have on the side of me. Jenna Cruz, she is the ESS Vice President of Operations, and Karina Jones, our LISD Account Manager. We've invited them here tonight to answer any questions you may have, in addition to myself as well. Before I begin our substitute staffing update, I would like to thank members of the HR team that are here today, as well as members of the finance team that helped work on this presentation and put it together for us. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin. Just a little background, a little context of how we got to where we are today. Back in December of 2021, we entered into a partnership agreement with ESS South Central to provide substitute staffing for the district. At that time, the district's substitute fill rate was 57.1%, with 332 active subs in our pool. At that time, the daily rate of pay was $115, and you can see when we went with ESS, that bill rate is $147.72, with a difference of $32.72. This slide here provides you with a little bit of data as far as our historical substitute expectations. You can see from 17-18 all the way to 19 and 20, we stayed well with our expenses, stayed within our budget amount. When you hit 2021, we all know what happened that year, or the spring prior. That would have been COVID, as well as we started to experience what we call the Great Resignation and the staffing shortage that we're currently in. You can see from 2021 all the way to 23-24, our expenses are exceeding what our budgets have been, and our budget has increased. And we'll go through some of that as we go through the presentation. The agreement term, when we entered into our agreement with ESS, was from December 21 to December 22. Our anticipated expenditures were $6.1 million. Included in that cost, what ESS would provide would be the recruiting, the screening, the hiring practices, the background checks, training, evaluations, all the payroll-related expenses, and the benefits and insurance. At that time, our procurement and contract department negotiated a term with a $5,000 credit to be applied every month if ESS did not meet our goal of an 85% fill rate. We came back to you in December of 22. You all voted to continue our agreement with ESS South Central. Special thanks to Craig Martin and his team in the Procurement and Contracts Department, and they renegotiated our contract. We increased our fill rate penalty from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month if they failed to meet our fill rate of 85% per month. ESS also provided a reimbursement credit for every month that the LASD ESS sub-office was not fully staffed with 3 full-time employees. That office was not fully staffed for 6 of 12 months. ESS did provide support, though, coming from their corporate level. The reimbursement for each month that they failed to fully staff our office was equal to $4,620. And then we continued to have a 30-day out clause. So fast forward to October, and this is where we are, our current status with ESS. We currently have 745 active subs through ESS. Our average yearly fill rate from September of 22 to September of 23 is 78%, and our $10,000 monthly credit for not meeting the goal fill rate of 85%. As of September of 23, we had received credits totaling $70,000. So essentially, that's 7 months of that fill rate penalty. The ESS central office has been fully staffed throughout the 23-24 school year, where we started, where we are. Just a reminder that ESS does offer employee benefits, some things that we cannot do. The weekly pay, the benefits, medical, dental, vision, 401k, the incentive pays, the weekly prize drawings, and weekly recognitions. I am going to share that in the month of September, one of our ESS subs from Indian Creek was the winner of a weekly recognition through them. And then just a little bit of comparison data from the fall of 22 to the fall of 23. you can see that our overall fill rates did increase. So from in August, our overall fill rate increased by 13%. And then in September, from 22 to 23, our overall fill rate increased by 7%. Our teacher fill rate continues to be high, on the higher end. Our paraprofessional fill rate is where that tends to be a little bit lower, and that is where we could see an area of growth with that. As you know, ESS is in 2 of our surrounding districts, both Denton and Frisco. This is a comparison data of where we are in comparison to them for the first 2 months of the school year. We are below both Denton and Frisco in both of those months. A little bit of that we are contributing, the difference to that is we do have a smaller pool of subs than those 2 districts. And then another concern is what we call lead time. So there is about, when campuses or employees put in their need for a sub, it's a little bit later than those surrounding districts, and that creates a swing of about 12 to 15% within where we ended the night before to where it ends the next day. So that's a little bit of that reason behind that reason there. Just a little bit of information about where our daily pay rate is. So we are currently just our certified substitute. They are being paid $115 per day. If you compare it to our surrounding districts, it's pretty comparable. There are some outliers out there, Denton, Plano, and Arlington. They're a little bit higher. We have our history. We have been at $115 since 21-22. That was the last time we did adjust that. We went from $110 to $115 at that time, and we've stayed there. So looking at this is just an idea of the actual calendar year and the expenses that occurred for 2022. We began our contract in February 15th of 22, and those are the actual expenses for every month. We ended with $4.4 million there. Then this is the actual calendar year, not the fiscal year, for the cost to date for 2023. You can see they have increased significantly. Our actuals up to date as of September, we're sitting right at $5 million. We anticipate, based on previous year's data, that will end up at their projections for 23 at $6.7 million. And then we have the fiscal year for 24 is right at that $6.7 million, and those are all projections. So with that, I just wanted to kind of remind you a little bit of the benefits of staying with ESS. I've already talked about the first couple ones, but the last 3 I wanted to hit, one of them is, as you all know, we talked about this when we began our partnership with 2 of our neighboring districts being ESS districts. What's really unique about that is we all share kind of the same pool of substitutes. I will share an experience where we needed a long-term math sub about a month ago. We did not have anybody in our current pool of substitutes that was able to fulfill that role or wanted to fill that role. We reached out to a local district, ESS district. That person was interested in the long-term sub position, and we were able to get that filled. So we have a sharing of substitutes, and they can, for example, Denton's smaller than us, and if Denton doesn't have any open positions that day, then our ESS team will call them and say, hey, we've got openings here, here, and here. And so we share that pool of substitutes. Again, another just consideration is the Social Security versus TRS. So what I mean by that, we had a lot of our long-term subs, retired folks that have paid into TRS for many, many years. And when we switched to ESS, they stopped paying into TRS and started paying into Social Security. So if we were to make a switch and go back, that would be another consideration we would want to consider. And then, of course, the staffing piece. Right now, our department, that ESS is staffed with 3 full-time staff members, an account manager, and 2 recruiters. And if we were going to consider moving away from ESS or doing something differently, that would need to be considered in that as well. So our recommendation at this time We're going to be coming back to you in December for a recommendation and a vote. Our recommendation at this time is to continue the current contract with ESS Central. We are asking to change the current term to align more with our fiscal year. So we would ask for it to go from December of 23 to June 30th of 2024. We would like to continue with all of our reimbursement credits, the $10,000 per month. If they don't meet the 85% fill rate, stipulate if they ended up not being staffed, that we would get that credit, continue to have the 30-day out clause, again, change that contract renewal period to better align with our fiscal year. And it would allow for better projections and better reporting. And we would like to provide an update at the June board workshop as well. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Taylor.
I think I had a couple of questions. I think you did a good job of answering. I'm trying to get back to the slide because there was a difference in the fill rate for our neighboring districts that were using ESS, where we're at 90%, 85%, and they're in the high 90s. And you mentioned that the smaller pool of subs, and I guess I was confused about that because we talked about sharing subs. So if you can elaborate on that. And then the lead time in asking for a sub, have we looked at a change in policy related? I guess I'm trying to figure out how do we increase our numbers so we're at least as competitive as our neighboring districts that are also ESS?
Absolutely valid questions. Karina, would you like to answer the part of what they're doing to recruit and the lead time?
So let me start with Yes, that better? Okay. Let me go ahead and start with the sub pool. So we have 742 subs exclusive to LASD. Now, if we need to go into a neighboring district like what she was mentioning, we needed a long-term math sub, we have that luxury of going into a neighboring district and letting them know that, hey, we have this position available, and we can then draw from that particular school district sub pool. So they do have larger sub pools than we do, but we have that luxury to do so.
Okay. And then where were we, and I came on the board, I think, as we were voting to go with ESS. What were we doing before? And then what do the other districts, namely McKinney and Garland, because they were on here, what are they using?
So it was part of the HR department. So we were staffed with a sub-coordinator and an assistant, basically, in a professional role. And so we did all of that in-house and took care of it as we would with anything else. And that is what McKinney's doing, I believe, and Garland as well. Plano, I believe, is still in-house, and the two districts I mentioned are not.
And in order, on the lead time question, we'll definitely take a look at that.
Yes, we will.
What we're learning from having been a part of this experience with ESS is we're still learning through some things because it's still rather new, but we'll absolutely take a look at what's possibly causing that time to be different in terms of subs picking up jobs. In terms of Frisco and Denton's relationship with ESS, they've been with them a little bit longer, so we're definitely watching the trends in terms of the sub-pool growth. The change to the fiscal year also, should we need to, upon evaluation, recommend a change when you're talking about if that has to happen, changing from June before school starts. We joined midstream in December. And so a December to spring onboarding was necessary at the time, but not really the best timeline for if we reach a point where for some reason we need to make a change.
Dr. Barker?
Just to piggyback on that question, are there specific strategies that are available for us to recruit a larger subpool? Are there things that, you mentioned watching what Denton is doing, what these other districts are doing. What have we identified? You've identified the problem. Have we identified some of those solutions to growing that subpool?
I'll take that one. So when growing the subpool, we do a lot of recruiting within the community. We also have Indeed ads. We're doing college fairs. We're going and speaking. on behalf of education departments when we're going to the local universities and helping those that are going into education determine which field they want to go into by allowing them to come in and sub first with us. So we're continuously doing recruitment.
You're also out in the community, if I'm correct, as well.
A lot.
Yes. So they're
A
out
lot.
at different events throughout the community. They're out. I know you've seen the signs. You've seen they've been out at apartment complexes and things like that. Libraries and things like that.
And of course, we also have a referral program. The referral program has been very successful for us, not just with our subs, but with our current employees with LASD, because they have that opportunity to earn $100 for every successful referral. Everybody knows someone. So that's been pretty successful here, too.
Dr. Bronner.
Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. What about looking at the time frame that people are out due to school business, professional learning, that sort of thing? Have we tightened up on that?
We're working through that process. We have a new process that we are implementing, or that we have implemented, and we're tightening back a little bit on that.
There's some opportunity there.
You're right.
And I guess I would just ask comprehensively, what else are we looking at? We've this end of the table has mentioned several things, but don't bury the lead. What else are we doing?
Go ahead.
Whomever, yeah.
I appreciate the question. So one of the things that we've identified is where are our absences coming in? And as mentioned earlier, we're starting to see a lot of those last minute absences. And so for us, we kind of have to pivot. So at one point, we were pre-scheduling folks for their first 3 to 5 shifts. But the opportunity became we didn't have anything in the future. And so kind of knowing that information, what we've decided to do is to kind of tackle how we have those conversations with the substitutes. So now that we know that we've got these new folks onboarded, Karina and her team have come up with an internal process to say, okay, we don't have anything right now, but let me know when you're available. And so maybe it's Tuesdays. So they're going to call those particular new folks on Tuesdays to try to get some of those jobs filled because we know they're going to come. So we're working with different things like that to kind of navigate. They're working on also a kind of a last-minute group of substitutes that are going to work for us every single day. This is a new process we've just put in place. We've had success in other districts, so we recommended doing it here, and through the amazing partnership with Melissa, kind of navigated to where the right strategic placement for those substitutes would be. So while that is new in production for us right now, we're really expecting to see some great dividends from that.
I appreciate you mentioning those 2 districts, and I'm hopeful that there can be some more bleed over from the great subs in Denton and Frisco into Lewisville ISD. I also know that there's a super tight labor market right now, which is impacting you and every other district in the state. I've been a big proponent of this. I'm really encouraged, but I'm also wanting to see better numbers as the costs rise. I mean, there's just no 2 ways to put it. And so I'm hopeful that some of these best practices other places can be brought in, and then I'll close with this, and that we can look at things in an entrepreneurial way. There's no bad idea. Let's throw it up and see what sticks so we can get those averages up, because as the cost rises, it's going to be more and more of a challenge to move forward. So thank you.
I think it's also important to know just one of the things that you all are doing is that our campuses that have low fill rates, we have established we have established 2 or 3 positions every day that we have assigned certain subs to go to those campuses. And so every day they know they're going to go. They may not know what position they are. And I got great news this morning at 6:45 this morning. I got an email that said, oh my gosh, this campus is 100% full. We're going to send them to the next campus. And so we're trying to be strategic in that way too, looking ahead, thinking about where our vacancies are every day and how can we help them. So I think that's important to note as well.
Ms. Lasan.
So one of the things that I liked about ESS, from the beginning was the fact that substitutes can be eligible for benefits. And so I guess, and you don't have to answer this question right now, this might be just data you could provide us, but I'm curious how many LISD subs are using the benefits, and then, all of the benefits. And then how, I guess, Ms. Cobb, have we surveyed, or does ESS do a survey of, what do the subs think of, ESS versus, what do they think about that?
Great question. Thank you so much for that. I don't have the data offhand on how many of your specific subs do take the benefits, but we can get that for you, no problem. So Melissa will share that with you. But we do. We think that the feedback from the subs is absolutely critical to what we do every single day. So we actually survey them twice. We do a first day survey. We ask them how their first day went, let them provide feedback to us. Maybe it was a great day and maybe it wasn't a great day. What did that look like? How can we help? We also ask them again on their 10th day worked, because that's usually when they get a payroll check from us, make sure everything is looking great from that perspective. We also will do periodic touch bases with them from a local level, and we'll ask them important questions, like, is there something that motivates you, or what kind of prizes would you like to see given away? Because we do understand that every culture and every district has a different motivator, and so we'll ask the subs to give us that feedback. So there are several times throughout the course of the employee's tenure with us where we'll ask them for their feedback and survey them on how they feel that their employment's going with us.
So, and that's fantastic, but is there any sort of comparison to the way when we were running it internally to how we're running it now, or to how it's being run now through ESS?
So I'd have to look into that for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I would have to go back and look at what surveys and things we looked at.
Okay.
A couple years ago.
Anecdotally, I have not heard anything, one way or the other, really. So it may be just fine, but I'm just curious.
Ms. Alcatab.
I should have went first because she had some of my questions too. One of my big things was I would like to see the benefits, the number of subs that are actually taking advantage of that, and are we seeing a difference in, the number that are using that versus when we didn't have it available. And I'm definitely curious about the surveying of subs, and not just what kind of recognitions do you need or those awards. Not very many Lewisville ISD people win those. I was a sub for 4 years, part of the district, part of ESS. I had, a lot of concerns. There are still a lot of current subs that are coming to us with lots of concerns. And so those are definitely things that I think we do need to survey them on and see, because they're in the daily trenches. Are you enjoying it? And there's some that are really enjoying it. About the contacting, you're calling them on Tuesdays or whatever. Are they getting called too much if they've indicated that they're not coming or they're not available because maybe they've got a PTA commitment or maybe they have another job, those kinds of things. So I'd definitely be curious about seeing some of that survey data. You define that there are 745 active substitutes. What does active mean? Does that mean they're just registered as a sub? Does that mean they've subbed once in the last month? What does active mean?
No, active means they're currently working a minimum of 6 days per month.
Okay. And I would be curious to see, and you don't have to give me this now, just like how many subs do we have that are actually registered versus how many are actually working?
So the only ones that should be registered and not working are the ones we just recently hired. And I mean, like within the ones that we hired today, for instance, have already been contacted for assignments as early as tomorrow. So we shouldn't have very many at all.
Okay, so we might not have one that maybe just works once a month, or those might be outliers. I would just be curious about that to find the active.
Her team just recently went through a review of all of the subs. Correct. If you notice, I believe some of the data we presented to you was a while back we were around 900, and then in the weekly update we went down to around 600, and then we're back up to 745. That was a result of her team's meeting and looking and calling all of the subs, contacting them to ensure those were working or were not working and wanted to continue to work. So that's kind of the reason between the deviation and the numbers.
Perfect. And then I want to agree with Dr. Bonner, when he said that we just need to see better numbers. Because our numbers are low, and Ms. Taylor also mentioned this as well. And so just kind of how are we going to achieve that if we do continue to work with ESS and what that would look like. Those are my biggest things. Thank you.
Ms. Sells.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on one of Ms. Taylor's questions, and that was you gave the statistics on not being able to post the jobs as early.
The lead time. The lead time. How much lead time do we allow them?
So it's not necessarily an allow. It's more of that's set by the campus. So we have set hours
that every substitute's going to work at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level. So with an employee, so it's kind of standard best practice to say, as soon as you know, go ahead and put your sub in. Now, some campuses will say, if you know later than 6:30 a.m., that you put your sub in. After that, you need to be here. But we all know life happens, and you may get sick on the way to work. So some of that you can't control the lead time. But if I'm going to say, is there a policy related to that? There's really not. It's more of best practice and what's set by the campus. So what we're trying to do is we speak to the principals every month at Principal WebEx. We talk about lead time. We talk about, remember, you have a better chance of getting a sub if you will remind your employees to enter them as soon as possible. Even midnight is much better than 6:45 in the morning, because her team starts working at 6 in the morning. They start cold calling at 6.
And then how far out can a teacher say, I'm going to need a sub on this day?
As far as they want to go.
As far as
within the school year.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then people can pick up on those.
And
are we seeing better fill rates for those days? We know that they're going to have the emergencies, but...
So Karina and her team have a weekly meeting with HR representatives, and so some of those, like the long-term subs that we know that we need, we are doing a better job of being a liaison between the campus and ESS. We're kind of connecting them and saying, hey, we know we're going to need a long-term math sub for a maternity leave for the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then they're working on that as a month or two in advance. We're telling our principals, as soon as you know, if you can't secure anybody, give us a call, let us know. We're going to start working on that. So as soon as we know, we start working. And that's part of their weekly conversations.
Okay. And then those campuses where we're seeing fills not happening consistently, what are we doing as a district to maybe retain a permanent sub for those campuses? Because that's outside of the ESS.
Correct.
Permanent sub.
It is. That's a full-time allocation. So with that, most of that that's something we're looking at right now. In fact, I just looked at a report last night about that. And so my team's thinking ahead. And so ensuring that either A, that allocation's already there and it's filled. If not, how can we help them to get that? Because that's what we're telling. That's kind of our message first is, hey, we're going to work on the ESS side of it, but can you use your permanent sub? Because that's the purpose of the permanent sub that you all voted on to allow us to continue. So that is our first, after ESS, it's, hey, can we get that permanent sub to fill in? In fact, the Rangers Parade Day. Was that Friday? The Rangers Parade Day, we were a little worried about subs. And I got a phone call early in the morning. Oh my goodness, this campus, is it over? Are we having a problem overall? Or are we having a problem at this? Is it just this campus? And so we looked into it, and at that moment it was really two elementary campuses. And so one of the solutions was, hey, let's send a permanent sub over there if they're not needed. And that's some of the things we did to help out. Because at one of our elementary campuses on a Friday, we had 8 teacher vacancies, which is not ideal. And so we sent some permanent subs over there. So those are the strategies and things we're trying to do to get immediate help.
Okay. And then piggybacking off of something Ms. Lasan said, part of something that I jotted down was I really would like to know how those subs are feeling, because I know as a sub for me, and I don't have my badge here, but I'm a sub in a neighboring district. And for me, it's that I'm a part of that district. And so I want to make sure that we're not so geared to making sure that they're a part of ESS that we forget that we need to embrace them as part of LISD. And so I don't know how to do that because of the separation of what we're doing versus how it's done elsewhere. But I just want to make sure that those that we have that are a part of ESS still feel like that they are part of the LISD family. And
I 100% agree with you on that. So we'll work through some ideas for that partnership.
I have some very smart colleagues who asked a lot of my questions. No, don't apologize. I think that my question is have we seen a change in the absentee rate at our campuses? Or, can you look at October of 2023 to October of 2022, and we're at about the same amount, or is it more or less?
I can look at that. I have, to be honest with you, I have not looked at that well enough to speak to it tonight. I could tell you my best guess, but I don't know that I want to do that.
No.
But I can certainly look into that. We can do that. We have that as availability to do that.
And I would say the survey data is very important. I'll be very blunt. I've had several subs reach out, and they feel harassed. They feel that they have said, I cannot work Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and you all call and you email on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so they feel that doesn't make them feel like I did my preferences, and my preferences aren't being respected. And so if my preferences aren't being respected, am I going to be respected when I get on that campus?
So real quick, just to talk to that one. So we were getting quite a bit of that feedback as well. And that was coming back to me quite a bit. Now, one of the things the subs know is I have extended hours. I give everyone my business cell. So if a sub messages me at 8 o'clock saying, hey, I put my non-work days in, am I going to get a phone call in the morning? And they're preparing themselves for that. So one of the things we have now is we built in a report where if somebody puts in that non-work day, they're not on that list to receive those messages anymore. So we did go in and create a report specifically to take those folks out. Now, of course, if they don't put a non-work day in, we don't know that they're not available to work, or if we have an immediate need, like Friday, for instance, we did default back and say, hey, we know that a lot of you guys put some, non-work days in for today, but we are in desperate need of people today. So if you can reconsider your schedule, that would greatly help us out. If it doesn't apply, please don't respond. But outside of that, we're using the new report, so that'll help with that.
I appreciate that pivot very much. And then my final question is, with those subs that we have provided, those full-time subs that we provided across the district, I would be very curious to piggyback on Ms. Sells, is how we are using them when we may or may not need them on that campus. Should we not be providing a full-time one on one campus and two on another? Things of that nature. I would like for us to look at that and see how we can better serve that. And then going back to absentee rates, I'd be very curious to see, I know Fridays are always a very popular day, but I would be curious to see how we are trying to prevent, if you will, some of those absences throughout the year.
We can look into that and provide that in one of our next weekly updates.
Okay. And one quick comment to just, we've never fully returned back to professional learning and school business like pre-COVID. And so I really want to circle back to Dr. Bonner's question about school business. Your school business, really, a lot of that is your coaches, athletic obligations, some of your campuses that are working through school improvement, and we have things we need to do with staff during the day. And there may be a little bit of things going on at the campus level that they're working with teachers and growing them, especially as we have so many associate teachers out there that we're working to support and different things. But we've never returned back to how professional learning was and the sub-demand that we had pre-COVID. So
I appreciate that. I think that's all. Thank you so much for the presentation. Ms. Cruz and Ms. Jones, thank you for coming.
And good note, Flower Mound Volleyball 1 and 3.
Yes. All right, next up is the TRS opt-out presentation.
Just waiting for it to pull up. There we go. Well, good evening again. I do need to say that our benefits director, Ms. Lutz, is out of town this evening for a milestone family event. So you get to hear me again, but I do want to share that all of her knowledge and expertise have been put into this slideshow. Okay? All right. To TRS or not to TRS? That is the question. So just a little bit of background. TRS is the largest provider for school district medical benefits. During the 87th legislative session, districts were given the option to opt out of using TRS as their medical provider. The thing to remember here is that once you opt out, you remain out for 5 years, and that decision cannot be reversed at all. So you have to make that decision by December 31st of the prior year plan, or before the next plan year. You do have 4 options if you choose to opt out: self-funded, and if you recall, that is what LISD was prior to 2003. That's where all your claims are paid, premiums, and it's all through the district. And then there's partially self-funded, level funded, and fully insured. So a little bit of background. Like I said, we've been a member of TRS Active Care since 2003. In 22-23, last year, TRS moved to a regional rating system. And then also in that same year, TRS rates remained the constant because they were given $435 million due to COVID relief funding. And then in 23-24, our rates increased an average of 20% with the additional government funding of $588 million to be allocated over 2 years. We are in Region 11. Region 11 does have the highest medical cost and premiums in one of the highest regions in the state of Texas. And TRS does offer 4 medical options, plan options. I do want to remind you about that Region 11. Kind of, you can see the graph there. There's all of Texas. On the left is 2023, and on the right is 2024. If you can read it up there, 11, we're shaded gray, which means we're one of the 3 or 4 up there that are also that are the highest. So the way the rates are developed at this standpoint is it's basically where we live. Rates are going to be high no matter who our provider is, whether we're TRS or not TRS. It's based on medical cost and demographics, and that's how the regional rates are determined. It's kind of like buying flood insurance at a waterfront property, to be honest with you. Just a few things to note about the improvements to our TRS plans. We just kind of looked at some primary plans. That's where most of the changes were made because providers use strategies to steer employees to the most cost-effective plan. So the primary plan, you can see they decreased the maximum out-of-pocket from $81.50 to $7,500. The primary and the primary plus plans, they added in that virtual mental health visit to address some of the needs that we've seen throughout the nation from 70 to 0. It costs you nothing. The primary plus plan deductible went from $3,600 to $2,400. And then the primary plus plan went from the PCP and the mental health copays went dry. They were cut in half by 50%, $30 to $15. A few things about TRS and the TRS considerations you can see there. 97% of TRS funding goes directly to healthcare cost. TRS is 18% lower than similar plans offered by non-participating districts. The couple that really hit hard for me were 90% of employers chose to stay in TRS health plans. I'm going to show you in a little bit who opted out and who didn't. 1 in 67 Texans are enrolled in some form of TRS. TRS provides health care to nearly 1,000 districts. TRS does offer competitive rates within each region, and then self-insured employers' costs have grown 3 times more than Texas TRS Active Care. So the first year that we could opt out, there were 118 districts in the state of Texas that opted out. Those are the ones in Region 10 or 11 that opted out. 108. In 23-24, 10 opted out. Notice that's everybody. That's not, I just didn't give you 10 and 11. I gave you all of them. So this plan, you see this slide a lot. You do, and when we do compensation and benefits. But we use this plan because this is the plan that most of our employees use. They're on. You can see up at the top, we have about 2,200 employees that are enrolled in our TRS Active Plan. It's our high deductible plan. It's not that it's the cheapest, because it's not. The primary plan has the lowest rate, which is $135 for employees only every month. We use this, we like this plan most of us, because we are able to get an HSA. We do not have to have a primary care physician. We do not have to have referrals to see specialists, and we have nationwide coverage. So that is what you see. That is why we use this for the rates. You can see our contribution. You can see the premium. This was this year. For each of the different tiers, the premium, what our district contribution is, and our employee cost. When you move to this one, you've seen this one as well. This is several of our surrounding districts. There we are at the top. Everybody's TRS except for Denton. Denton was one of the districts that opted out in 22-23. So if you look at Denton, they've gone with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So this is a chart that's quite interesting. This is TRS cost versus non-TRS cost. So we've gotten the data from Lewisville, we're first, then Denton, which is non-TRS, Decatur, which is non-TRS, Grapevine, Colleyville, and Mesquite. An item to note is Mesquite is Region 10. The other three are Region 11. So with Region 10, with Mesquite, you need to remember their employee eligibility cost looks really good over there in that column. But their plan rates, their premium rates are lower because they're in Region 10, not Region 11. And I need you to look at their district contribution. Their district contribution is higher than most everybody else. So while that looks good just looking at those numbers, you've got to look at the contributing factors. So if you look at Lewisville, and really, when you're looking at the three plans, they really are not that. They're not that different. The changes are not that different enough to even note. And the other thing is that when you're looking at the alternate plans of Denton, Decatur, Grapevine, and Mesquite, they pretty much, there's not a lot of difference with TRS rates if you're looking at ours compared to theirs. So look through that. So just some considerations for staying with TRS Active Care. There's no additional processing cost to the district. TRS takes care of all of that right now. We would have to consider adding that in. Our employees would not have to change providers. There's a wide range of medical providers and networks available to us. There's a variety of plan options. It's effectively managed, and it's a stable program. And because of the size of that program, they can offer competitive pricing, and they have more negotiating power with with medical networks throughout the area. So when you're thinking about opting out or leaving TRS, there are several risks to consider. So depending on the replacement option, we have to take control and keep our costs low. We need reserve funds when our claims exceed our premiums. Our claims can be highly unpredictable. It can become a financial burden, especially for a district with a deficit budget. It's going to require accurate accounting and independent audits to determine the stability of the plan that we're offering. This one's the increased workload. So alternate plans would provide medical. The district would be required to provide the wellness programs. For example, TRS currently provides diabetes management, heart healthy screenings, weight management. We would now be required to take that on if we were to opt out. Some districts are doing that by offering an on-site health clinic. And so that would be a consideration as well. We would need to consider the staffing of that clinic, the location of that clinic or clinics, multiple because we're so vast and large, across the district. So those would be some things to consider. We would also, outside of providing an alternate plan, we would have to partner with a local medical network for our hospital needs and our pharmacy needs. And we would, have to account for that double-digit inflation all of us are experiencing. So kind of where we are now, this is our in-process slide. We are working with TRS to obtain our analytical claims data. You can request that 2 times a year, and we are requesting that. It's our summary health data. Once that's received, we're going to work with several entities to begin that data review process. And then that we will be able to get 36 months of our medical claims, pharmacy claims, and our enrollment data. And after that, we'll provide an update as to the analysis and what we learned. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions, Ms. Taylor?
Yes, I had a question, and I probably already know the answer based on some of the slides, and you may not be here yet since you speak of a later analysis, but you're closer, your department is closer to the numbers and the data. So if you had a recommendation, what would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to stay with TRS.
Okay, and I would tend to agree with that based on the information you provided, even without the analysis. My accounting brain went to Cigna in Grapevine, Colleyville, because I was like, this is lower for the district and lower for the employees, but you mentioned the referrals and just all of the administrative things around it. And the fact, I think that's a sticking point with me, is I'm all about, let's try this, and if it doesn't work, let's go back. But it sounds like it's a 5-year period that you have to be locked into.
You do.
Okay.
And I do know that those individuals or those districts that did opt out and wanted to go back in, they wrote a letter and they were not. It is a drop dead. 5 years, you stay out. You're not allowed to come back in. So my recommendation would be to stay where we are, just due to the stability of it and where we are financially as a district, because like you said, the administrative costs alone, and that it is just an extra part of the premium plan and the cost.
Dr. Bonner?
Melissa, does TRS continue to look at ways to reinvigorate their program? I know a couple of years ago is when they broke into the regional consortiums to do some cost pricing and that sort of thing. Are they continuing to do that? And if so, tell us a little bit about that.
To my knowledge, yes, but I'm going to have to get Maria to talk a little bit more about
that's
that.
Fine.
And I'll do that in one of your weekly updates.
Okay, thank you. And then the other thing I would just say, I mean, this is really an economics question, right? I mean, you've got 1,000 districts across the state. You're going to have, Dr. Fitz, you get ready, regression to the mean on costs. You like that? Yeah. Or you can go on your own, and you're going to have that for one entity. So there is no way I would want to leave this entity as currently constructed. You know, we get a lot of criticism around public school district insurance coverage, but, you know, if you don't have insurance, it's pretty darn good. And so what I would say is let's continue to work with TRS on ways they can be better. Let's be a huge advocate for that and a frequent advocate for that, and continue on with TRS.
Dr. Barker.
So it's kind of interesting that we have this ESS conversation and then we have this TRS conversation, right, back to back. So part of the benefit of us being with ESS is that they manage much of that for us. They do the recruitment, so we do no longer have to have those 2 staff members that you mentioned previously, right? So if we were to take on our own insurance, we would have to staff people to manage that. Am I correct?
You're 100% correct. And that's what I'm attributing to these part of the administrative costs.
Both in HR and finance.
Yes.
Perfect. So considering what we've done with ESS, for consistency's sake and how we run our business, it seems more in line with what we do to not leave TRS.
Agreed.
Ms. Lasan.
Okay, so I was one of the ones that really asked for this. Jenny kind of, it's because, you know, and part of the reason why is, you know, the benefits, like, you know, you hear the benefits are not great, you know, and they really could use a lot of improvement. And so, you know, when I worked for the town, they were self-insured. The benefits were fantastic, you know. So I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they do. I don't even know if they still do it. They probably do. I don't know. But so I do appreciate the work and looking into it. I still am not giving up on this idea for the future, maybe for now, but you know, because and then to Dr. Bonner's point, yes, I guess I would like to see, because, like right now, I am mucked in paperwork trying to decide, okay, should I put my kids on my benefits or my husband's benefits to see which one. I'm doing the spreadsheets and all the things. So I would like to see, and if you can just point me to a website link, that would be fine too, just to see what the costs are, what they get, what it covers, all that kind of stuff. Because if there's some things that are glaringly missing, I would like to advocate for it and be like, hey, what's going on? So the one question that I did have just on your presentation, though, when you're talking about the maximum out of pocket, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, because, again, I am literally just now at home running all these numbers right now for our own benefits. And this, the maximum out of pocket, you said went down from, $8,150 to $7,500. I mean, is that just a one person? Is that just employee only, or is that family? I mean, do you know? You may not have written this presentation, but
no, I did.
Well, you said your employee was out, so
yeah.
I wasn't sure.
No, I can double check on that piece. She worked on it with me together. So, and it's also just our primary plan. It's one of our plans. So we have a maximum out of pocket for each of our 4 plans.
Yeah.
So I can get back with you on that.
Because there's definitely a little cheat sheet, and we'll send this out in the follow-up, where you can, there's the booklet online where you can compare in depth, and then there's a little cheat sheet about the maximum out of pocket for the individual versus the family and all those kinds of things.
I figured there was, because I'm looking at these at home right now. My point is, that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, anyway, okay.
Ms. Sells?
I was looking at Ms. Alcatip. I just, there was an article that TRS put out, I believe it was in the summer or maybe late spring, about comparing the TRS system to, and it was quite a number of other entities that they compared it to. And I think that the one thing I got out of that, and of course it's any best practice in business, is the large or the risk pool. And when you talk about those numbers and how they are across the state, they not only does that allow them to plan better, but it also allows for greater, just a greater benefit to the employees. And so I think moving us out, even though we go, one of those larger companies, I think that today's economy, the volatility of healthcare is going to be something that I think we're going to see things in the future that we've never seen before. And I think that when they put us as an entity into a smaller risk pool, our costs will be driven up. Because every time we have a catastrophe of an employee, whether that expense be $150,000 or whatever, we're under scrutiny. And I think with the TRS, they're allowing that into their computations, and I think that that's one of those benefits. So yes, I don't ever want to be that person that just sits back and says, oh, well, we're good. If there's something for our employees that we can do, absolutely. But I absolutely trust the employees of the HR department to be trying to turn over every stone they can to get our employees the best of what they can. And so I think that if we could find that article, and I remember reading it back, I'll look for it too. Maybe it was a year ago. Was it in Lone Star too? But there was something from
I have no doubt that Ms. Lutz can find it.
So yeah,
She's
we'll
fantastic.
find it. I'll find it. So okay, thank you.
So I, along with Ms. Lassam, was one of the people that wanted to see what this looked like for us. As the largest employer in Denton County, I just could not imagine that we couldn't benefit from this. And to Dr. Bonner's point, in any way that we can advocate as one of the larger districts in the state with TRS, I would like for us to use that bully pulpit. Can we opt out of Region 11 is my...
I've asked that myself too.
Okay, so I figure that's a no. But I would say if we can use our bully pulpit. When do we expect to get the data from TRS? Like when did we ask? When do we expect to get it?
We asked just recently.
Okay.
So it'll be a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm not expecting it to be like a week or anything like that.
Okay, we had a larger data, when we sat in that session at, was that SLI or?
That was at SLI.
Okay, yes. And they said, consider the de-identified data versus the summary data. And so what we originally got ended up being the de-identified data. So now we're like, no, we want the health summary data, so.
Dr. Bonner?
Ms. Sells, your comments lodged something out of my memory. In 2003, when the district was self-funded, entity of one, right, there were a couple of catastrophic instances which drove us out of that. One was a motorcycle accident, another one was a heart transplant, that the district bore the opportunity to pay for those things for the employee, and that's what drove us into TRS. So it's, in my mind, it's really risky to go it alone. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cobb. Moving on, we are to item I-4, the finance report from Ms. Maloney. First up is the report on the 2023 Facilities Assessment Document, my favorite document.
Thank you, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, members of the board. As Mr. Hughes makes his way up to the table, I think that we are in our 8th annual review of the facility assessment document. I'm correct. Okay, here we go.
That is correct. All right. Good evening, board. Dr. Rapp. We are presenting the 2023 Facilities Assessment Document this evening, and we will jump right into that. I don't have to tell all of you that Lewisville ISD is a very large district. Just got through hearing you talk about that. But just quickly, for those who might be watching, more than 48,000 students, 127 square miles, one of the largest footprints in DFW, top 20 largest districts in the state, top 100 in the nation. That's out of over 13,000 districts nationwide. So a big number to be in the top 100. We have 79 sites containing approximately 10 million square feet of facilities, just under 10 million square feet, and that is held within 39 elementaries. I won't read all of these, but 10 high school level campuses, learning center, 2 aquatic centers, 5 stadiums. So all of that means we have billions in facility assets, and with great assets comes great responsibility. So just a little history of kind of how we got how we got here, I guess. Prior to 2015, our capital plans were created as really snapshots in time. They were done by multiple different groups in a number of different ways, usually non-district staff. Due to our size, that was not always an easy task for those who came in to try to do that. And it really became impossible to do quickly by anybody that came to do that. So the past approach led, in my opinion, to some inconsistent practices, more patchwork versus a holistic approach, if you will, some subjective project selection, think squeaky wheel gets the grease, or some campuses just had better advocates, maybe louder advocates, if you will, for projects, and it did not always take advantage of the knowledge of some of our staff. And so when I took over leadership of facilities in 2015, I approached Dr. Rogers with an idea that I had. He took a look at it. He said, how much time do you need? I said, I need X months. And he said, you got half of that. And that's when the document was created. And so the current approach that we have provides a more consistent assessment district-wide. It uses objective methods and data that is used to determine the needs. And the data is gathered by staff who maintain these systems daily. These are licensed tradesmen and women, licensed electricians, plumbers, HVAC technicians, locksmiths, etc. And as you mentioned, this is the 2023 is the 8th revision of this document. So some of the highlights of the assessment document is what I mentioned is it was developed and maintained in-house, which is a significant savings to the district. With that number of square feet, they're usually billed by the square feet. So with 10 million square feet, if they just charge us a penny a foot, we're looking at 100,000. Nobody's charging a penny a foot for an assessment like this. If they are, we should pay it, please. The document was identified as a best practice process in our internal audit we had earlier this year. It provides a comprehensive look at the age and condition of each existing building through their major building components. We're going to take a look at that. All major building systems and components were inspected, as I mentioned, by our LISD facility services personnel. Items of note, that items addressed through the 2017 bond referendum are highlighted in orange in the notes column. And then new in the version that you have, items proposed to be addressed in the 2023 bond have been highlighted in blue in that notes column. And we'll look at an example of that as well. And just to mention some new items that we're tracking that were added this year. One is the emergency radio responder systems that we were adding to the buildings. We've added some. In the 2017 bond, those have been added to be tracked. Plastic laminate wall panel systems has also been added. And we also added some storm shelter locations. And some of those storm shelters have components that we are now tracking, inverters and some different pressure tanks for restrooms and things. So a brief review of how the document works. This is the first page of the document. Each system or component is evaluated using the data points defined here. And those data points include, excuse me, the life cycle in years. This is one of the most important. This is the length of time measured in years that a product, material, or system is expected to perform under normal usage. And we get these life cycles, they're derived using a number of different resources. You can see there on the left, industry standards, manufacturer recommendations, regulatory agencies such as the National Fire Protection Agency, for instance, for fire sprinkler systems or fire alarm systems, historical experience, which we have a ton of at this point, and also peer publications and facilities, such as the one I have listed there. When you go to the next column, that's our last replaced column. This just denotes the year that the product or material was last replaced. Moving on to the percent life remaining. This is just a ratio of the item's age to its expected life cycle. And we're going to look at an example of how this works in just a second. Then we move on to our visual evaluation score. And this is just a score given by our facility services personnel of how that item is currently performing relative to where it should be in its life cycle. And then finally, we have the work order history, which is just the labor and materials costs associated with maintaining that system. And the number in this column represents a benefit or penalty to the previous two scores. So all of that gives us a total assessment score, which we believe is the most accurate assessment of when that item should be considered for replacement. All right, so let's review what that looks like in practice. This is just an excerpt from the document. This is Durham Middle School. You can see in the top left-hand corner. It was built in 2000, or actually opened in 2002, making it 21 years of service for that facility, just under 130,000 square feet. If you move over to the right, you'll see the assessment scale that we use. We use a 0 to 100% scale, with 100% meaning that that particular component is new or has been newly replaced. And then moving all the way down to 0 on the scale, which just means it's 0% life cycle remaining. And then we need to plan for replacement at that point. So there you can see the data points we just discussed on the previous slide. And so if you will follow me along on the very first line, it says Durham Middle School HVAC original. That HVAC system has a life cycle of 20 years assigned to it. It was last replaced in 2002, which was with the original construction of the building. So the percent life remaining on that is that it's 21 years old, so we're 5% beyond our expected life cycle on that particular equipment. Our facility services staff went out there, gave it a score of 5, just because it's still working, but it's in bad shape. And we actually have some units we're probably going to have to replace before we actually get to it on the renovations that are proposed in the bond. And then we have the work order history score that actually knocked it down a little bit more. We spent a little bit more labor and materials there to maintain that system. And so you give it a total assessment score of 0. So this particular system is ready to be replaced. That puts it on our radar. It's proposed in the 2023 bond, and you can see that shown clearly on the right-hand column. All of those lines in blue are items that are proposed in the 2023 bond, and those items in orange there are noted that were taken, actually added or renovated in the 2017 bond. So this is pretty straightforward on how that works, our assessment document. But where it really works and really shines is when it gets more complicated on a more complicated facility, I know most of you have seen this before. So this is one of our initial studies that we did. This is an addition study at Marcus High School. The original part of the building, and you're looking at this, was opened in 1981, is the unshaded portion in the center of that drawing. Shortly after that, we got a plethora of additions that were added to this building. In 82, you got the ag shop in red there. It's now the robotics building. In 1983, we got athletics and fine arts additions there in blue. In 84, we got a cafeteria expansion. In 1988, the S-wing was added. In 89, the auditorium. In 97, we got an athletics addition. In 2000, we got what is known as the W-wing. In 2008, we had a gym addition. And then in 2014, we had the activity center, the 9th grade, and some fine arts additions added as well. So each of these additions have multiple systems and components with different life cycles that need to be evaluated and tracked. And I know this is an extreme example, but we have several of these, and more than half of our buildings in the district have at least one addition on it. So moving on, just to add a little bit, another level of complexity to that, for each addition that we just talked about, each one, just one category, in this case flooring, can have multiple different types of flooring with multiple different life cycles to each of those flooring types. So this was a flooring study done at Hebron High School. Some of this has changed already. This is one of our initial studies. If you look at the legend on the top left, you'll see we have several different types of flooring denoted there. And just to speak on a couple of these, carpet has a life cycle of approximately 15 years. The vinyl tile, VCT, has a life cycle of approximately 20 years. Our wood floors and gyms, we typically get about 40 years out of the wood floors. And then our terrazzo flooring can actually get up to 50 years of use. And so just to show you that. So when we go back to Marcus in the assessment doc, you will see that, of course, we're tracking a lot of different items. And our document really scales very well in that case. I know this is very small, but we're able to track all those components. The very first one, the top left in the navy there, we're tracking 7 areas of HVAC systems at Marcus High School, 5 of which will be due for replacement in the next 5 years. You can see they're highlighted in blue there, and you'll see it on your document. But we're also tracking multiple buildings on the high school site as well. We have the stadium, field houses, indoor athletic centers, so on and so forth on the document as well, tracking. And so we're able to track all those different systems, all the different life cycles, and all the different areas with the document. Okay, last year, if you remember, we started committees at each campus to provide additional input from end users at those campuses on capital planning needs. And so facility review committees were created at each campus in December of 22. Last December, those were made up of 3 to 5 member teams depending on whether or not they were elementary or secondary campuses. There was a principal, assistant principal, teacher, and then when you moved to secondary, it became athletic, and fine arts representatives were added to that team. We gave 5 trainings in December to the different feeder patterns on how the assessment document works, and then gave the task to the committee of what was expected of them. Then data was collected from them, from each campus via Google form at the end of January for review and consideration. And then we went back and presented the proposed bond projects to the facility review committees at the end of the school year, which they were very appreciative for. And moving forward, those facility review committees are to provide an annual facility review information for admin's review and consideration each year by June 1st that we will utilize to put notes in the document for other needs that we can discuss.
Yeah, I'll take this next slide. One of the things that we want to do is, in the spirit of using such a robust planning document, is we want to look at expanding our capital planning process to other departments and other things that have really a life, an asset life beyond a year. Collective planning for those large expenses. And the areas for consideration are athletics, fine arts, technology, safety and security, career and tech, special ed and instructional materials, really getting out there. And we know that the needs, especially in the programs, change over time, and you have advisory committees that give input. But really to map out a 10-year plan that if we're going to continue to do all of these programs, having a robust planning document to say, along the way, how much we think those things are going to cost. And regardless of fund source, it could be a booster club, it could be a bond, it could be the general operating budget, it could be a grant, it could be a federal fund source, but at least we know what the needs are. And then we can map those things out. And I always say that, if you get out there and say, you know what, I don't know that we're going to be afford to continue this, you can do something called strategic abandonment if you need to do that. So we want to kind of take a robust planning document that we have and carry that over and morph it into all the other areas.
That's the end. Any questions for us?
Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Taylor?
I'm sorry that I always have questions. Probably more of a comment. This document and then the non-public information was really important. I was shocked at the ages of some of the schools, and I knew that a lot of them were at the 20-year refresh period, but to see some of the schools were even older than that, with HVAC and roofing needs and floor. I mean, it makes sense, right? If at your house, if it's 30 years old or whatever the case may be, you have to replace all those things. So I think that this was just more information to drive home what our needs are for our district where we have such aging schools. And then just a comment on the capital planning process. I like the idea of expanding that to the different areas because I think it's helpful to see what's coming up as a need or something that needs to be addressed, the timeline, the funding requirements for replacement or repair, and I think it would be helpful for those other areas. Athletics, I think, was on there and some other things. So just more of a comment.
Dr. Barker.
Similar comments. I think that a robust planning process like this, especially in our district, provided a lot of the information that the One Vision Task Force needed to be able to make decisions around what we needed in terms of a bond package. And so I think that that's really important, that these decisions that were made were based on very robust data processes, and I'm really extremely thankful for that. And I agree, I love the idea of expanding this into some of the areas, especially areas that are proposed in the bond, like musical instruments, pianos, things of that nature that last for a certain amount of time and that have extensive costs for the district. So thank you for that forward thinking.
Thank you.
Dr. Bonner.
This is a quick one, Jason, and really in the weeds, so I apologize. On the planning document, if you've got Durham Middle School and it's a couple of years out on the HVAC, but you're going to be doing the roof and all that, we package that up or no, where we are out of efficiency, but also saving some money, having people out, that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Yes. So if you look in the document, you'll notice that a lot of our components and systems in the buildings have a life cycle of approximately 20 years. And so when we look at that, we will look and see, once we hit a number of the major systems, HVAC, roofing, fire alarm systems, some of those major systems, when they all come due, that will trigger to us that we need to do a larger renovation there. So typically we call it a 20-year maintenance life cycle and repair project. And then, yes, we would package all of that up, try to get all that done at one time, get in the campus one time, get out, instead of having to go back multiple times.
And I'll be the third person that likes the planning idea. And but you said something at the end that I'm really encouraged by, and that's strategic abandonment. So I want to know when that happens because we are hesitant to do that a lot of times in public education. So thank you.
One of the things, I know that probably as Ms. Prosnick and Ms. Sells talk, I imagine referencing going back to being a part of creating this document
in 2014.
And so, there's a lot of history and a lot of expertise, and just I think we continue to get more sophisticated in having conversations about our facilities, because there's no doubt that we've got a lot of humans using these facilities and a lot of opportunity to do a lot of great things to them, and trying to be sure that you're monitoring and tracking all of that is so critical. But I'll never forget when Mr. Patterson was here, one of the things, to Dr. Bonner's point about packaging things together, he really complimented the system of the 20-year maintenance, life cycle, and repair, and that he had not seen something like that. And the intent is, when you have so many things on 20, if you're going in and you bundle those things and you take care of then other things around that, it really is a scale of efficiency at that point. So that brought back a Mr. Patterson memory as well.
Yes, I was going to give Ms. Sells a shout out. I know she walked some campuses. I was on another committee that looked at this in 2014 that helped birth, that gave some of the data for this to happen for you in 2015. Here is my great comment on the facilities report. It is my favorite report. I refer to it often. I'm hoping to get my book because I like the set on the shelf. Because sometimes I like to go back and I like to see what did we really say in 2016 to what are we saying now. Did it last as long as it did? I do check that. But one of the things that I discovered when I was doing some facilities walks with Ms. Maloney was that principals were not aware of this document. And that I think that is a real opportunity that we have to help them on their campuses understand where their roof is and where those things are. And I like the shading of what is in bond proposals because I think that also helps them to understand that, this also may have just gotten replaced. And then that's another opportunity for us to make sure that we're getting good customer service on warranty work, et cetera. So that is my great question, is how are we going to use this amazing document, not just so it looks great on my shelf, but so that it is actually working on campuses? Have we talked about going to campuses and sitting down with principals and going over the document with them?
Yes. In fact, that's really what we did with this facility review committee that we created so that we could do specifically that. And so we went out and we created the Google form for them. They created their committees. They walked to their entire campuses. We said, hey, we would like you to provide us with capital planning needs. 75% of what we got back was work orders. But we did get some good stuff, and we provided some of that. We met with them again. We said, hey, these were good. This was probably a work order. And so I think every year we're going to get better data as we move. And they're going to be providing, as I mentioned, that data back to us on June 1st every year. And that will give us enough time to review that and then make any notes or talk to administration about any projects that we could potentially do. And, of course, gather those for future bond planning as well. And so you can see in the document on that, just really quickly, on one of the lines on that Durham, you can see on the Durham Middle School elevator line, you will see that there's a note there that says we would like to remove that wall. That is actually from that particular Google information that we got from Durham. So we added that in the notes column. That way when they go in to do that work, it's in there. And so when the architect is starting to do the design, construction, the architect can work that out and get that in there for that.
And Ms. Brosnick, another thing that we did right after the Board of Trustees called the bond in August, we set out to meet with every single principal in the district. Now, we didn't do every single elementary by themselves, but we did them 4 at a time, and they signed on to meet with us for 30 minutes. And we reviewed the components of the document and what they got in the prior bond, and then what is proposed in this bond, and just kind of talked about the mechanics. And it was really good education for them, especially for new principals, new to our district, that really didn't have any idea that the planning document existed.
So are you going to keep the shading, I guess is my next question, going forward? Like, is 2017 ever going to fall off, if you will, of being shaded? Or are we, I'm not going to lie, start looking like the rainbow? Yes. In that we're going to have, yellow for this and blue for 2023, and then it's going to be purple, and then it's going to be pink. I mean, because you don't stop fixing your facilities. I mean, that doesn't stop.
You don't. We've had those exact discussions in my office, and we've landed on both sides. I think for right now, we've decided to keep at least 2017 in there, and then as we move forward, we'll kind of have to see. But the reason they're not printed tonight, as you may know, is because we do have the election tomorrow, so depending on what the outcomes are of the election, we'll have to tweak what is actually going to be taken care of in the 2023 bond. And so once that occurs, then we can make the necessary changes. Hopefully we won't have to change anything. Who knows? But then we will print those and get those to any board member that would like a physical copy of that.
Well, thank you again. I love that this is I call it a living document. It is not stagnant, and I greatly appreciate that, and I do appreciate the work. And I'll be the fourth trustee that says I like going forward. I especially think that it would be great to have, I'll be honest, a separate technology piece. I think that would be very beneficial to have. And then athletics and fine arts and those kinds of, in the CTE especially. I think that special education might be really difficult, to be quite frank.
I was just thinking of that equipment for classrooms, and then, the equipment that the children use, the occupational or physical therapy, things like that.
Yeah, but would that not be on a campus? I mean, would that not be like a campus level instead of its own?
It could be. I mean, those are large expenditure items.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're more than a year.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
I think that moving this document even into a greater self than what we even foresaw, and I walked every elementary campus in this district, plus some middle schools and high schools when I could. And there was a group of us that did that. It was Ms. Prosnick was on there, and then Ms. Lasan served on our Facilities Advisory Committee for the 2017 bond. So this was the precursor to that bond, and it greatly helped, I think, even that committee. And now as it's evolving, that's what's exciting. And seeing it not only help that 2017, but now this 2023, but even moving into that greater growth, we are, we've talked about tonight, our partnership with DACU. If we don't move into those things, such as you were saying, even the CTE equipment and things like that, what great opportunities for some businesses in our community to come alongside us and say, hey, you know what? In 5 years, we're going to know, and I don't know what you call that thing that body's on, and that computer body is, but what is it called?
Animage table.
In 5 years, we're going to need a new one of these. And would your business want to partner with us in moving in that next 5 years to purchasing that for our CTE courses? And so I think it just provides so much more opportunity for us. And I just appreciate all the work. I know the work that I went through back then. It was a lot of days and nights up here and out in the field, and to see it still being appreciated. I hope that those that were on the One Vision Task Force this time understand the appreciation we have for them, because once again, as I said in 2017, those 28 hours that those people put in, they're coming to fruition. And so I just appreciate everything that the staff does and the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Are there any other comments? You're free to go. Next up, the purchase of attendance credit agreement.
Thank you, President Prosnick. The purchase of attendance is one of 5 options to reduce local revenue in excess of entitlement, aka recapture. It is the lowest cost option for our district. Last year in fiscal year 23, we are going to pay about $61 million in recapture, all of which was in the tier 1 portion of the formula. The 23-24 adopted budget does not project any tier 1 recapture due to the action taken by the 88th legislative session with compression in the $100,000 homestead exemption. But the adopted budget does include appropriations in the projected amount of $12.5 million for recapture payments with a successful VADR, which includes 5 Tier 2 Level 2 copper pennies. And those are subject to recapture. The copper penny yield is $3 million, and our projected tax collections per penny is 5.5. So 2.5 million of that would be paid back in recapture. So the purchase of attendance credit agreement requires board approval, and it's going to be coming back as an action item by statute. It has to come as an action item on November 14th.
Are there any questions? I just have one. If the basic allotment is increased, that would also decrease that recapture payment, correct?
It would. I think it's just probably a best practice to go ahead and get it approved, since we have had that since 2005, our election 2005, not to have a dip. You never know if you had some crazy windfall.
But if the basic allotment is increased, it would not be the 12 million, correct?
No, the copper pennies operate independently. The basic
so
allotment
that's
only
my
works
question.
in
So
tier
they
one.
operate
Yes.
independently.
Yes.
Got it.
And those have not increased. They didn't increase those. They're the same since 2019. Only the golden penny
More
yield
opportunities
changed.
for the legislature.
Absolutely.
All right, next are proposed budget amendments for the general fund and the child nutrition fund.
Thank you so much, President Prosnick. After the budget is adopted in August, as the need arises, budget amendments are proposed to increase or decrease the general operating, child nutrition, and debt service budgets. Traditionally, we bring this item in November. We call it our purchase order roll. And budget amendment number 1 covers 3 general operating items and 1 child nutrition item. The 3 general operating items are we are transferring about $300,000 from local funds to federal funds for E-rate reimbursement. This revenue belongs in federal revenue. It was an error at budget time. Also in the general operating fund is that purchase order roll of almost $3.6 million. And also is an additional $405,000 in Function 52 for an expansion of the Guardian program. We also have budget amendment number 2 in the Child Nutrition Fund. That is a purchase order roll as well, and largely attributed to part of the spend down plan for items we have not received yet. The last bullet in this item explains each part of the amendment. It will be coming back in consent on 11/14.
All right, are there any questions? All right, moving on. Fiscal year budget calendar per CE local.
Thank you, President Prosnick. The board committee that we formed last summer revised CE local. The changes to the CE local represent added components of annual budget planning, and one of those things was it calls for the approval of the budget calendar for the next fiscal year by November. And so we're excited to get started on next year's budget, starting in January, and this will be coming. The calendar will be coming back as a consent item on November the 14th.
Are there any questions?
Not a question, just great work. Just really good to see that come into fruition after that meeting or that committee grouping, and I just am really appreciative.
And as each one of those items on the calendar come, we will reference the budget calendar.
Very good. Moving on, the November 14th regular board meeting consent agenda preview.
Thank you so much. A 2-pager. We almost got a 1-pager. We're working on it, Mr. Martin and I. But tonight, on our new bids, we have for lighting in the district, so they'll have multiple vendor options. That's what that first new bid is. On our annual purchases, the first one is an as-needed for kitchen equipment. We don't want you to be confused with, like, this is our spend-down program. Of course, we could use this bid for part of our spend-down program. It can be a part of it, but it's not that all of it. It's just if we need, as the need arises, if we need to use that bid. The next 2 bids for a furniture bid, one is our own bid and one is a cooperative bid. This is in anticipation of a successful bond election, and we, if successful in Proposition B, we would have to utilize many vendors to be able to pull off what we're going to do with furniture. So that's the reason for these 2 bids. The technology device repair is some of the funds that we use for that come from the fees from the students, but that is to be able to pay for any of our repairs. And the last one, it was approved in September. The Enterprise Information Systems bid was approved in September. We're simply adding the wireless services that were omitted from the previous item. And that is your consent agenda preview. It's one of the shorter consent agendas coming we're in November, on November the 14th.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Maloney. We did item 5 earlier. That was the DACU sponsorship agreement. Next up is the Board of Trustees updates for our committees. So, Dr. Bonner, do you have an update for the Audit Committee?
I do, and I'm not going to flub it up this time like I did last time. The audit for procurement, there will be some information coming to the board in December on that for an update. And also today, Mr. Martin and I talked about bringing the 5th-year renewal for the audit package at a subsequent board meeting. So that's in the hopper for that.
Very good. Ms. Lasan, do you have anything on the employee awards and recognition?
Not particularly. However, I do think that we will revisit some things that have happened and maybe make adjustments for next year.
Very good. The Legislative Advocacy Committee is meeting 3 times over the next 2 months to come back to the board with what we talked about at our team of 8 for our advocacy agenda. Ms. Taylor, do you have anything for the Finance Audit Committee, the first report?
Just that we had our kickoff meeting to talk about the timeline, and so I'll have more information as it becomes available.
Very good. And then on the naming committee, I know you're busy.
The naming committee, we have received a couple of requests. I will need to reach out to Ms. Cobb regarding some records that I'll need. And also, I've reached out to the committee to set up a meeting. Hopefully, we'll get one scheduled here in November, and I believe the information would be forthcoming in January.
And then the Program and Budget Committee continues to meet, and hopefully we are going to be able to come back to the board with some processes and procedures. I did form 2 committees, FCD Local, which is looking at our transfer policy. Ms. Sells and Dr. Barker are serving on that committee. And then I also formed a committee, our Appraisal District Vote Allocation Committee. In your folders, you should have a draft proposition of how we are going to allocate, how the committee is recommending to allocate the votes. If you have suggestions or are in violent opposition, I would ask you to reach out to Ms. Maloney so we can avoid quorum, so she can relay those concerns to me. I know Dr. Bonner would like to speak on the subject.
Yeah, we're gonna address this at the November meeting, or is
we will allocate votes at the November
and that's
meeting.
All, no discussion.
No, I mean we can have discussion then, but I know that you have something you wanted to say in regards to the
construction.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thank you. The only thing I would maybe want to appeal to everyone about is just maintaining stability on that board. You know, the entities in the county went through probably a pretty tumultuous period a little bit more than a year ago in reforming that group from an outward perspective, and I sure would hate to lose progress around this election cycle. So that's my only input, and I appreciate the consideration and time to visit.
All right. Does anybody have anything to add to this evening's meeting? All right. With that, with no further business, this meeting is adjourned, and the time is 8:52.